Yeah, good evening, one and all. This is our 17th virtual talk as a part of 150th celebrations. So we will begin today's talk. Today's speaker is Anil, who is known to everybody as Anil Gokak, and we will begin with. He's also with us. He's going to speak to us on the impact of Sri Aurobindo and Sri Aurobindo's Savitri and Bharat Sindhurashmi. And we will begin the talk. We'll begin the entire program with invocation, with Mother's music, and then I will introduce Anilda. It's going to be about 2 minutes meditation. Once again, I welcome you all, and let me have the pleasure of introducing today's speaker, Sri Anil Vinayak Gokak. Sri Anil Gokak is MA in Economics, first class from Osmania University, Hyderabad in 1962. He joined the Indian Administrative Service in 1964, Maharashtra Cadre. Also held an important post under the government of Maharashtra as well as government of India. From government of Maharashtra, he was collector of Dhule, collector of Thane, vice president and chief executive officer, Maharashtra Housing and Area Development Authority. He was secretary Forests, secretary Agriculture. And as a part of government of India service, he was the Cement Controller of India, Managing Director, Food Corporation of India, Secretary, Department of Program Implementation, Secretary, Telecommunications. During his tenure, the first steps for implementing the new telecom policy were taken, and 7 telecom licenses in favor of private parties were issued. He was also the Secretary of Fertilizers between 1998 and 2000. He took the lead in conceiving and implementing the Indo-Oman fertilizer project, which has benefited the Indian economy by saving foreign exchange worth hundreds of crores. He retired from his services in August 2000 from the Government of India as Secretary Fertilizer. Post-retirement period, Government of India is India's representative on the committee appointed by the Government of Maharashtra for carrying on negotiations with the management of Enron Power Company. He was nominated as member of the advisory board of the Reserve Bank of India for banking, commercial, and financial frauds. He was also a director on the board of directors of Can Bank Investment Management Services Limited, the chairman of the committee of setting up energy efficiency norms, and also a member of the committee set up by the Lieutenant Governor of Andaman and Nicobar Islands to examine the problem of encroachments on forest lands. He has authored 2 books, Industrial Sickness and Telecommunications in India. The book on industrial sickness finds a place among the more important empirical and holistic studies. Subsequently, he was Vice Chancellor, Sri Sathya Sai University, Puttaparthi, between 2005 and 2008. He is now enjoying his retired services time and written the following 3 books after his retirement. Kannadada Vismaya, a biography of Professor Gokak in Kannada Sahitya Prakashana, Hubli 2020, and Impact of Sri Aurobindo on Professor V.K. Gokak, 2 volumes, published by BR Publishing Corporation, New Delhi. And the other book is Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba, His Vision and Mission. And now I have the pleasure in opening the floor to Sri Anil Gokakji for his talk today. Sir, you will have 60 minutes approximately, and then it will be followed by interaction with the participants.
Okay.
Over to you, Anil.
Thank you, Ajit ji, and I wish a very good evening to all the listeners and viewers. Today's talk will be no doubt on the impact of Aurobindo and Savitri on Bharat Sindhurashmi. Am I audible? Yes.
You are audible.
I would say that it is a study of Aurobindo, Sri Aurobindo, through this Kannada epic. That is how it actually happened. Briefly, Sri Aurobindo, the seer poet, was introduced to Professor Gokak through Bendre, the poet seer, and his association with the poet seer paved the way for a deep and independent study of the seer poet Sri Aurobindo later on. By 1950, all the major works of Sri Aurobindo had been published, and thereafter, Professor Gokak was able to not only read the whole literature of Sri Aurobindo, but also started writing in Kannada based on his philosophy. The life divine and Savitri, their importance I do not have to exaggerate, because the undercurrents of the life divine is seen in all the works of Professor Gokak, who said Sri Aurobindo threw life divine into the crucible of Savitri and remolded it in its very essence. Before proceeding further, I would like to share some of the important features of Sri Aurobindo's philosophy as spelled out by him in the Life Divine. Number one, he said that evolution is the evolution of consciousness. For life is a middle term between life and matter. He described it, life, as a constituent of matter and instinct with mind. Life always tried to find its expression at various stages and reach the stage of the conscious animal. Man is no doubt the acme of creation as it stands today. But that is not the end of evolution, for a Superman is going to emerge. Man's birth was crucial in the history of evolution because man, unlike other animals and creatures, is able to investigate himself, analyze himself, impact the environment to some extent, and also correct himself. Earth's unique position is also given importance because Earth is the only region in the universe with an evolutionary potential. Ascent of man to Godhead is important, but equally important is descent of divinity into man for the divinization of the human race. I now come to deal very briefly with the symbolism of Savitri. Savitri, in fact, all the characters in the epic have a deep symbolic significance. Savitri is the daughter of Savitr, the creator. Satyavan is the one who carries truth with him. Ashwapati, Ashwa symbolizes horsepower, and Ashwapati is the lord of life. Ashwapati symbolizes the human soul aspiring for the divine. Savitri is the descendant, symbolizes the descent of divine grace on earth to spiritualize humanity. Jumatsena symbolizes man who is tragically blind to his own divinity because of ignorance that exiles him from his own kingdom of the world of light to the world of darkness. It can be described as an epic concerning the evolution of humanity, the history of humanity, and its spiritualization. Its canvas is very large. In fact, the entire world is its canvas. Let me now turn to Bharat Sindhurashmi. And now my attempt will be to disclose, unfold how Aurobindo has impacted Bharat Sindhurashmi, or how Aurobindo can be seen through this. Bharat Sindhurashmi delineates the turmoil and turbulence which was associated with the period of the Vedic Renaissance. Before any Renaissance, there is a turmoil and upheaval, economic, political, and social. The role played in it by luminaries like Vamadeva and Vishwamitra is also highlighted. In fact, Vishwamitra plays a very crucial role. There are 4 structural parts of the epic. The first part is an account of creation in 2 shifts, the Bhagavata account and the Vedic account. The rule of the 7 months is also covered. The second part deals with the birth and evolution of Vishwaratha, Vishwamitra in the initial stages, his growth as a prince, his marriage with Sankriti and coronation, then encounter with Vasishtha sage. There he realizes that mere military prowess or worldly prowess, worldly power is not sufficient. Spiritual power has to supplement. It is as important as earthly power. This is what he realizes. Then he undertakes penance, and it is during the penance, period of penance, that the universal mother appears before him and gives him her blessings. He thereafter becomes, Vishwaratha becomes Vishwamitra. For in the beginning, Vishwaratha's aim was to unite the Sapta Sindhu region, the region of 7 rivers. But at this stage of penance, he says, no, it is not just Sapta Sindhu, it is the whole of humanity that I want to be blessed. During the period of penance, his kingdom, Vishwaratha's kingdom, is invaded by enemies who divide it among themselves. And his wife, Sankriti, dies in the forest. The universal mother who blesses Vishwamitra tells him that he will play a very important role, not only in the regeneration, reunification of Sapta Sindhu, but also in the entire evolution of entire mankind. The third part is dominated by Sudasa. Sudasa replaces Vishwamitra as the king in this phase. And Vishwamitra gets himself relegated to the position of a Purohit in the court of Sudasa. Then what happens is, Sudasa was a descendant of Bharata clan, and Professor Gokak felt that the name of the country, Bharata, is derived from Sudasa, who belonged to the Bharata tribe. It is Sudasa who fought against Aryan kings and others, and not only reunited Sapta Sindhu region, but also created Bharata Varsha. Sudasa, the king, he was an ideal king. There is a Dasharatnya battle which he has to face with the confederation of Aryan kings. He succeeds there, and here Vishwamitra puts into practice the earlier ideal of military prowess supplementing earthly power. He helps Sudasa with his spiritual power in overcoming the tactics deployed by the enemies. Not only that, the kings who were defeated started running away, disappearing from the scene after Sudasa's victory. But Sudasa told them, don't do that. I am giving you religious liberty. Stay within my empire. I will give you all administrative autonomy, and persuades them to join Bharata Varsha. The empire expands eastwards and southwards too. In the fourth part, we see the re-emergence of Vishwamitra as a prominent character. Because Vishwamitra, in this part of the epic, helps Satyavrata, the Trishanku, who wanted to honor the wish of his wife, who wanted to go bodily with him in heaven and live with her there. Vishwamitra agrees to help him. And he says that unless you become a God-man yourself, this cannot be achieved. So he starts penance. It is during the process of penance that he goes wrong. Because Bhogendra mocks at Vishwamitra, and Vishwamitra says that he will create a counter Bhogendra. Brahma interferes at this point of time and says that he has reversed the process of creation. Creation begins from top, but you have begun from matter. This cannot go. And you are doing all this because of your anger against Bhogendra. This is also not correct. But still, I admire you because you are trying to help a friend in need. And he says you undertake another penance. He undertakes another penance, meets all the tests with great success, and then emerges as a Brahmarshi. It is in the last part of this epic that Vishwamitra has dialogues with Mother Earth, Swayambhu, the father of the human race, and time. So, and at the end, he joins the 7-star luster as its steersman. This, in short, is the summary of Bharata Sindhurashmi. Here, I would like to say that in the composition of Bharat Sindhurashmi, in its architecture and philosophy, it is not only the life divine, but also the secret of the Veda that has played a very important role. Let me come to the secret of the Veda. Sapta Sindhu, as I said, is the land of 7 rivers. It is referred to very often in the Rigveda, and the land of the 7 rivers is conceptually linked with the Rigvedic concept of the 7 rivers and its interpretation by Sri Aurobindo in the secret of the Veda. The 7 worlds or streams of existence are Bhu, Bhuvaha, Swaha, Mahar, Sat, Chit, and Ananda. And the 7 states of consciousness associated with them. Aurobindo brings out the relationship between the 7 rivers and the 7 worlds in the interpretation of hymn of Brahaspati, which describes the effects of the slaying of Rudrana by Indra. And he says, the well of honey hidden by the rock breaks out, and it symbolizes the water of bliss, the threefold bliss of the world of Satya, Tapas, Jana, whose base is Swara of the Veda, Mahar of the Upanishads and Puranas, and the world of truth. So these 4 worlds, Satya, Tapas, Jana, and Swara or Mahas, are described as the source of the 4 upper rivers in the Rigveda. The other 3 rivers are the rivers of the 3 lower worlds that supply them their principles. In other words, the sea of the superconscient, the sea of the subconscient, which is within the heart, and the life of the living between the two, you can say the ocean of life, is the oceanic architecture of the Vedas. Now, what happens is we have to deal with the concepts of the waters of bliss and the waters of life. The waters of bliss are detailed by Vrutra and Brahaspati with Indra and all those luminaries, deities. They release the waters of bliss. The waters of bliss descend to the earth, but during the descent, the territorial element, the terrestrial element starts predominating, and the waters of bliss becomes the waters of life. And at the other end, they become totally the waters of life. At the same time, the waters of life retain their connection with the waters of bliss because Agni is hidden in water and he starts performing his role gradually. So, when the same seven streams start rising as waters of life towards heaven, Agni starts his purifying role. And gradually, the waters of life become the waters of bliss, the mighty one of heavens, as Sri Aurobindo says. The Agni here plays an important role at the stage of the transformation of the waters of bliss, after waters of life into waters of bliss. Because he appears as the universal element, the one who is present not only in one stream but in all streams, and is yet aware of his multiple presence. So the symbol of the seven rivers shows how man is helped in his ascent to Godhead by the descent of divinity. It has both the stages. The divine help is there at the stage of ascent and at the stage of descent also. Otherwise, the seven rivers would not have been released. The concept of the seven rivers is linked with seven cows and seven rays. The image of cow is linked to the dawn and the sun. As a matter of fact, Sri Aurobindo says that we have taken to the word cow has to be taken in the dual sense, light and cow. The sevenfold principle, I am quoting Sri Aurobindo, the sevenfold principle of existence is therefore imaged from the one point of view in the figure of the rivers that arise from the ocean, Sapta Dhenava. From the other, in the figure of the rays of the all-creating Father, Surya Savitri, Sapta Gavaha. The seven rays reveal the seven layers of consciousness. The message is that man can reach the summit only if he achieves the synthesis of the seven worlds of existence and the corresponding grades of consciousness. Then only is the synthesis of living possible. The epic pertains to Sapta Sindhu, the land of the rivers. Seven rivers are Sindhu, Vitasta, Jhelum, Asikni, Chenab, Parushni, Ravi, Vipasa, Bias, Sutudri, and Saraswati. The epic recalls the great synthesis between the seven worlds of existence and the corresponding grades of consciousness that was achieved as the wonderful synthesis, blending of the Aryans and Dravidians. Sri Aurobindo's gradation of words is also seen in the epic, though in a modified form. The grouping of Sri Aurobindo of Sat, Chit and Ananda into one word, Satchidananda, is accepted, but it is modified by the creation of the world of Antaratma, inner soul, with Brihaspati as its deity, and the creation of Aditya Mandala with Aditi as its deity. At this stage, I have to point out the impact of Sri Aurobindo's interpretation of the words Brahma, Brihaspati, and Brahmanaspati, which played an important role. Word Brihaspati is used in more than one sense in the Rigveda. Brahma, Brihaspati, and Brahmanaspati are the important names. Initially, Brahma and Brihaspati were one and the same. Later on, they became two separate entities. Brahma was associated with the all-inclusive, all-pervasive, transcendent, immanent consciousness present in the whole universe. He represented the power of the soul. Though he created the world that created the worlds, he was associated with the soul power, and Brihaspati was the word which expressed it, which expressed this soul power. The word that creates the world is charged with the mantric power of the Brahman, and Brihaspati is the instrument through which the word finds its utterance. It is by the power of the word that Brihaspati breaks Vala into pieces. Similarly, Rutra is shaken by the power of the word. In Brahmanaspati, the two get unified and equalized, but over a period of time, this word, Brahmanaspati, which was a link between Brahma and Brihaspati, disappeared. And later on, only Brahma remained. He remained as a part of the Trinity, but Brihaspati was relegated to the position of only a teacher of the gods. He advises the gods on how to enable men to ascend to Godhead. This, in short, is the gradation of the world insofar as the world of Antaratma is concerned. Coming to the creation of Aditya Mandala, we find, I do not know, but my conjecture is that the importance given to the feminine aspect of creation in Savitri has influenced the author of the epic in naming a world after Aditi, a mandala, as Aditi Mandala. The universal mother plays an important role in cosmology of Sri Aurobindo, and the universal mother is Savitri, the only female avatar in an epic. I think, as Sri Purani says, this is the only epic in which a female appears as an avatar. So maybe the importance given to the feminine aspect of God and creation in Savitri influenced him in naming this mandala after Aditya Mandala. I must deal with another important symbol which appears in this epic, and that is the symbol of the horse. Because after the Dasaranya battle, in which Sudasa emerges victorious, according to the practice, all the ceremonies connected with the horse are observed. Sri Aurobindo's interpretation of the horse in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad has influenced the depiction of the horse in the epic. The horse is a universal figure. Time is its body and space is its flesh. His footing represents the earth. Belly represents the mid-region. It is vital and restless and devouring, but it is also capable of opening to the upper spiritual world. The back of the horse is heaven, where mind is still. When in control of the horse, the rider experiences the delight of horse ride. He can do this only when he has control over the mind and through the mind on the horse. The horse represents the invisible form of Parabrahma in regions where it leaves darkness behind it, and the visible form of Parabrahma when it brings light in the regions towards which it is galloping. Haya is the carrier for men and gods as well. The horse is the carrier. It is known as Haya when carried by gods, Arvana when Asuras ride it, because Aruna and Asura both stand for strong and mighty. It is called Vaja when ridden by Gandharvas. Ashwa is called Ashwa when ridden by man, because man's characteristic is hunger that devours him. Hunger not only devours him, but also the object. Hunger devours itself and the object. So, while it devours, it wastes both itself and the object. Now, the horse is seen in three different symbols again during the period of the horse sacrifice. In the first stage, the horse symbolizes the universality of the rule of the Chakravarti. It is the rule of Dharma that the Chakravarti is supposed to enforce. And the horse represents the universality of this rule of Dharma through the Chakravarti. In the initial stages, it is welcomed as Adhipati. Then, because the horse represents the supramental in the material form, it is subject to decay. During the period of the horse, it is the next stage, it is sacrificed. And later on, naturally because of the sacrifice, the body falls to the ground, but the consciousness of the horse merges with universal consciousness. So, it is Adhipati, then it becomes the horse sacrificial, and last, each and every part of the horse is sanctified, and each part is identified with a particular horse, with a particular god. Each part of the horse is identified with a particular god. After this, the horse becomes the universal form again. The ceremony symbolizes another thing, that the destruction of animalistic tendencies in man is absolutely essential and are an important ingredient of what is offered to God to purify ourselves. The ritualistic sitting, as per the Vedas, the ritualistic setting described there is per Vedas, but the symbolic element in relation to the horse bears the imprint of Sri Aurobindo's interpretation in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad and the secret of the Vedas. Cantos 12, 13, 14, and 15 of Book 8 of the Kannada epic described this. I will now come to the political philosophy of the Vedic age, which influenced the composition of the epic. And here too, it is the philosophy of the Vedic age, as interpreted by Sri Aurobindo, that played a crucial role. This enunciation of the philosophy of the Vedic age is found in the Foundations of Indian Culture. That is the one book in which we can find this very clearly. First of all, let us deal with the concept of the king. The king was supposed to be the representative of the divine on earth and the guardian of dharma. Aurobindo says that there is no resemblance between enlightened Indian monarchy and Persian monarchy, monarchies of Western or Central Asia, Roman imperial rule, or in later European aristocracies. This is different from the Pathan and Mughal emperors. Dharma was greater than the sovereign king. The sovereign king himself was subject to the rule of dharma. And the changes, the dharma, its characteristics were permanent and eternal, and changes in it were brought about spontaneously through evolution of society in various ways, in the form of the family, customs, etc. And so the transition was absolutely smooth. The second concept in this philosophy is the concept of the rishis. The king was not the head of the religious system. The entire system of customs and law of society was placed under the rishi. And the king was charged with the responsibility of enforcing this dharma. He had the executive power over the communities as long as he remained faithful to dharma. The vital aspect, the fact that the king was subordinate to dharma, was emphasized constantly, and the sacrificial ceremonies on all important social and civil acts served as a reminder of this important fact. The social philosophy of the Vedic age is also echoed in the epic. The Chaturvarna system is rationally explained. I don't want to go into too many details because I know that most of you are familiar, and I have to take into account the time factor as well. But what Sri Aurobindo stressed was the intermobility among various sections of society. It is the temperament of the individual that determine the status in society, not the birth. In fact, he has said, probably in the essay on the Gita, that each human being is a Brahmin, Kshatriya, merchant, and Shudra in his own way. This is what happens when Parashurama and Vishwamitra meet each other, and Parashurama, who establishes Shurparaka Rajya, tells Vishwamitra as follows: Nanna Rashtradoleruva Urvarva Vyaktiyali Chaturvarna Pereyuvavu Brahmya Padnya Jotege Brahmya Pradnya Jotege Shatrabaya Karma Kaushalada Vikasana Vahudu Adarshadondu Mukha Pratiyorvaniha Vaishya ತನ್ನದೆಂಬುವ ಬಾಳಿ ದೋರಣಗಳನ್ನು ಕಾಪಿಡುತ್ತ ಹೊಟ್ಟೆ ಬಟ್ಟೆಯ ನೆತ್ತಿ ಬುತ್ತಿಗಳ ಹವಣರಿತು ಮನೆಯ ಮಠವಾಗಿಸುತ್ತ ಮಠವ ಮನೆಯಂದದಲ್ಲಿ ಚಂದದ ದವರಾಗಿಸುತ್ತ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಯು ಶೂದ್ರ ತನ್ನ ದೇಹದ ಶುಚಿಯ ಅಂತಃಕರಣ ರುಚಿಯ ರಕ್ಷಿಸುತ್ತ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಪದವಿಗೆ ಚತುರ್ಮುಖ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿ ವಿಕಸನ ಮಾರ್ಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಚತುರೋಪಾಸನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಸಾಧಿಸುತ್ತ ಮುಂದೊಂದು ದಿನ ಅರ್ಹನಾಗುವನು. And this is what the epic demonstrates in various ways. Now I deal specifically with the impact of Savitri on the epic. Professor Gokak himself has said that some parts of Savitri have been transcreated by him in the Kannada epic. Examples of transcreations are seen in the journey of the 7 sages. In Savitri, it is Ashwapati who prays to the universal mother on behalf of humanity as a whole. In Bharat Sindhurashmi, it is the group effort of 7 sages. And the experiences of the different sages in their ascent to the upper layers of consciousness is reflected in Ashwapati's journey. They are a reflection of Ashwapati's journey in Savitri. I will give a few examples. I will quote first the relevant portion from Savitri in English, and later on the Kannada equivalent to illustrate what I mean. And wherever English translation of the Kannada in the original is available, I will read out English translation as well. Now, Ashwapati's journey into the world of the world soul in Book 2, Canto 4 of Savitri is as follows. Yes. Under the watching eye of nameless gods, his soul passed on a single conscious power towards the end, which ever begins again, approaching through a stillness, dumb and calm, to the source of all things, human and divine. There he beheld, in their mighty unions poised, the figure of the deathless, two in one, a single being in 2 bodies clasped, a diarchy of 2 united souls, seated absorbed in deep creative joy. Their trance of bliss sustained the mobile world. Now, the Kannada transcreation is ವಿಶ್ವದ ಉಗಮ ಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ತಿಳಿಯಲು ನಡೆದೆ ಜ್ಯೋತಿ ಪಥವೊಂದರಲ್ಲಿ ಗುರಿ ಇರೆ ಸ್ತಬ್ಧ ನಿಧಾನ 2 ದೇಹಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಶ್ವಾತ್ಮ ನೆರಡಾದುದನು ಸೃಜನಾನಂದ ಸಮಾಧಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದುದನ್ನು ಕಂಡೆ ಜಂಗಮ ಜಗತ್ತುಗಳ ಸಲುಹುವ ಮಾತಾಪಿತೆಗೆ ಅರ್ಧನಾರೀಶ್ವರಿಗೆ ನಮಿಸಿದೆನು ಶೋಧನವು ಪ್ರಕೃತಿ ಪುರುಷರ ದಿವ್ಯ ಸನ್ನಿಧಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಗಿದಿತ್ತು. The prayer of Ashwapati in Savitri to the Universal Mother and of Ayasya in Bharat Sindhurashmi to the Universal Mother are also, in my view, important ones. And I will read out again the English portion from Savitri and later on the Kannada transcreation. How shall I rest content with mortal days? This is what Ashwapati asks of the Universal Mother. How shall I rest content with mortal days? and the dull measure of terrestrial things. I, who have seen behind the cosmic mask the glory and the beauty of thy face. Hard is the doom to which thou bindest by thy sons. How long shall our spirits battle with the night and bear defeat and the brute yoke of death? We who are vessels of a deathless force and the builders of the godheads of the race. Even the centuries and millenniums pass, where in grayness is the coming ray. Now, the Kannada transcreation is O Jagat Janani, Bandihe Sharanu Nindadege, Antima Shubhakarini, Triloka Tarini Neenu. ಯುಗ ಯುಗಗಳು ಉರುಳಿವೆ ವ್ಯರ್ಥ ಏನಿತೋ ಉದಯಾಸ್ತಗಳು ಉದಿಸುತ್ತ ಅಸ್ತಂಗಮಿಸಿ ರವಿ ರಹಸ್ಯದ ಭೇದ ನಿರ್ಭೇದ್ಯ ಸೂರ್ಯಕಾಂತದ ಪ್ರೇಮ ತಿಳಿದಿಲ್ಲ ಅದಿತ್ಯರ ನಿತಿಹರು ಕುಲದ ಸೂರಿಗಳು ಅದಿತಿಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧ ಸೃಷ್ಟಿಗಿರುವ ಅನುಬಂಧ ಹೊಳೆದಿಲ್ಲ ಆರೋಹಣದ ಅಂತಿಮ ಶಿಖರ ಆನಂದ ಶೃಂಗದ ಸನಿಹದಲ್ಲಿವರು ಕಂಡಿಲ್ಲ ಸುಳಿದಿಲ್ಲ ವೃದ್ಧ ಸದ್ಯವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ಕುಲದಾತ್ಮ ಪುರುಷನಿಗೆ ಅವನ ಪ್ರಜ್ಞೆಯ ಕುಟ್ಟಲದ ಪದ್ಮವು ಅರಳಿಲ್ಲ ಸೂರ್ಯ ಪ್ರಾಂಗಣದಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಂದು ಮರಳುವ ಮನುಷ್ಯ ವರುಣನ ಸಭಾಯ ಮಂದಿರದಿ ಸೇವನೇಕಾಂಗಿ ನೀನು ತೆರೆಮರೆ ಎತ್ತಿ ಮೊಗದೂರಿದನು ನಿನ್ನ ಪ್ರಭು ಸಂಹಿತದ ವಾಣಿ ಮರ್ತ್ಯ ಗಿವಿಗಳ ಹೊಕ್ಕು ತಣಿಸಿಲ್ಲ ಯಾವ ದೋಷವಿದು ಎಂತಹ ಗ್ರಹಣ ಯಾವ ತಾರಾಪೀಡದವು ತಪ್ಪಿಸುವುದೆಂದು ಅದೃಷ್ಟ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಯ ದೋಷ ತಾಯನುಳಿದಿದ್ದಾರು ಮಗುವಿಗಿದ್ದ ತಿಳಿಸುವವರು ನೀಡೆನಗೆ ತಿಳಿದವನು ಹೀನಿನಡೆಗೆ ನೀಡೆನಗೆ ತಿಳಿವಿದನು ಪಣಿಪುರದ ಬಿಲದಿಂದ ಗೋಗಳ ಬಿಡಿಸಿ ತಂದು ಸ್ವರ್ಣರ ರಚಿಸಿದೆವು ತೀರ ನೆಮ್ಮಯ ಭವಣಿ. Later on, we see another example of transcreation. It is the description of Brahma as Hiranyagarbha by Satyavrata in Rashmi, and the description of the god of death after he becomes the god of bliss in book 11 in Savitri. The English portion is like this. Hiranyagarbha, author of thoughts and dreams, who sees the invisible and hears the sounds that never visited a mortal ear, discoverer of unthought realities, truer to truths than all we have ever known. He is the leader of the inner roads, a seer. He has entered the forbidden realms, a magician with the omnipotent wand of thought. He builds the secret, uncreated worlds, armed with golden speech, the diamond eye. His is the vision and the prophecy, images casting the formless into shape, traveler and hewer of the unseen paths. He is the carrier of the hidden fire. He is the voice of the ineffable. He is the invisible hunter of the light, the angel of mysterious ecstasies, the conqueror of the kingdoms of the soul. Now, the Kannada transcreation, Hiranyagarbha Dvitiya Mukha Torva Daivatavu, Chintana Swapnaಗಳಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ವಿಧಾತೃ ಬಹುದೀತ ಸೂಕ್ಷ್ಮಗಳ ಸಂಭ್ರಾಟ ಮರ್ತ್ಯ ಕರ್ಣಗಳೆಂದು ಗ್ರಹಿಸದಿಹ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮನಾದಗಳ ಗ್ರಾಹಕನಿತ ಅಚಿಂತಿತ ಸೂನೃತ ಪಿಂಡಗಳ ಪರಿಶೋಧಕನು ಮಾಂತ್ರಿಕನಿತ ಸರ್ವಕ್ಷಮ ಮಾಂತ್ರಿಕದಂತ ಕರದೊಳಿರೆ ಅಗಮ್ಯ ರಾಜ್ಯಗಳು ಗಮ್ಯವಿಹ ದೃಷ್ಟಾರ ಅನಿರ್ಮಿತ ಗೂಢ ವಿಶ್ವಗಳ ನಿರ್ಮಾತ್ರ ಸುವರ್ಣ ವಾಕ್ಪತಿ ವಜ್ರ ನೇತ್ರ ವೀಕ್ಷಕನಿತ ಕಾಣುವನೆಲ್ಲ ಕಾಣ್ಗೆಗಳ ದುಡಿಯುವನೆಲ್ಲ ಕಣಿಗಳನ್ನು ನಿರಾಕಾರವಿದ್ದುದನು ಪ್ರತಿಮೆಯೊಳೆರಕ ಒಯ್ಯುವನು ಅನಿರ್ವಚನೀಯ ವಕ್ತಾರ ಗೂಢಾನಂದ ಗಂಧರ್ವ ಗುಹ್ಯಾಗ್ನಿ ಪಡೆದ ನಿರ್ವಾಹಕನು ಅದ್ರು ಗೊಚ್ಚರ ಜ್ಯೋತಿಯ ದೃಶ್ಯ ವ್ಯಾಧ ನಿವ ಆತ್ಮ ಸಾಮ್ರಾಜ್ಯಗಳನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಗೆಲ್ಲುವ ವಿಜೇತರು. Now I will deal with some portions of Savitri which have impacted the Kannada epic but which have not been transcreated. For example, and it is in these passages that we see the elements, the most important elements of Sri Aurobindo's philosophy and vision, the importance of the earth, the unique position of man, and the future of humanity. These dialogues occur at the end of the epic. Vishwamitra's dialogue with the Mother Earth, Swayambhu, the father of the human race, and time. So, the divine voice tells Savitri that she will be the instrument of the divine, and that is reproduced here. Savitri is destined to play important role for the spiritualization of the human rose, because that is what the divine voice tells her. I will pour delight from thee as from a jar. I will whirl thee as my chariot through the waves. I will use thee as my sword and as my lyre. I will play on thee my minstrelsies of thought. And when thou art vibrant with all ecstasy, and when thou livest one spirit with all things, then will I spare thee not my living fires, but make thee a channel for my timeless foods. Varshisuvad ananda inda harshod-bhavati, hiranmaya kalashaದಿಂದ ಅಮೃತ ಸುರಿದಂತಾಗಿ ನೀ ನಿನ್ನ ರಥ ನವ್ಯ ಪಥಗಳಲ್ಲೋಡಿಸುವಿ. ನನ್ನ ಖಡ್ಗವು ನೀನು ನವ ರಣಾಂಗಣಗಳಲ್ಲಿ, ನೀ ನನ್ನ ವೀಣೆಯೇ, ನೀ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಸಿದ ಮಂತ್ರ ನಿನ್ನ ತಂತ್ರಿಗಳೊಳಗೆ ಓಡಾಡುವವು. ಓಂಕಾರದವು ಬಹಿರಂಗದ ಆಘಾತ, ಅಂತರಂಗದ ಮೌನ ಎಲ್ಲವನ್ನು ಅನುಭವಿಸಿ ದಿವ್ಯಾನುಭಾವ ಹೊಂದಿ ನಿಸರ್ಗ ವಾಚ್ಛಾದಿಸಿದ ಗುರಿಗೆ ಬಂದಿರುವೆ. ಅಲ್ಲೆಗಳದ ಅತಿಮಾನಸ ಪದವಿ ಸಂಪದವ ದೈತ್ಯ ಶಕ್ತಿಗಳು ತಲೆ ಎತ್ತಿರಲು ನಿನ್ನೆದರು. ವಿಶ್ವದೆದೆಯಲ್ಲಿರುವ ಸನಾತನ ಸತ್ಯ ಸಂತದ ವಿಜಯಿ ಎಂಬುದರಿ ಸಮೀಪ ದೇವ ಮುಹೂರ್ತ. Then we have the reply of Vishwamitra to the Mother Earth, because Mother Earth tells Vishwamitra that everything is perishable. The Mother Earth tells Vishwamitra, all that is born will burn and lie in an earth. That is what she tells him. But Vishwamitra replies to her saying, I will read out the English translation of the Kannada original by the author himself, which is available. O mother earthing angel heaping love, no urn turning in the bowels of earth, an infinite number of created things descend, I doubt not, into your dusty womb. But to wake up day after day and shine, minerals and metals, seeds in the ocean bed, corals and pearls, sunrise and sunset, birds, animal and man, and seasons sempiternal. Forever men and women drawn to love, in progeny perpetuate themselves, and harsh fresh drippers hail the greening earth. Mother, O ladle of vision for grey men and gods, no vessel of dust impure full art thou, but the lotus of the honey consciousness. Then we come to the dialogue of Vishwamitra with time. Here too, the English translation of the Kannada version is available, and I will read out the reply that Vishwamitra gave to time was, "O time, be grateful that yours forever are the fame and name for glory of creation. Yours and twin brothers, infinite space, by your primordial might moved stars and spheres. You shepherded them into the dome of space and made them spin. Two architects divine, Vibhu and Vishwakarma, then arose and filled all space with loveliness and grace. One random atom that you made your own burst into myriad colors of sunrise. Where else is mortal beauty scattered so prodigal? I know, do I not know, that the agony of living exceeds the sting of death? But time, remember, this playground of the blessed, this earth is not a camp of birth and death. It is a theater for unfolding consciousness. This is where nectar is churned from many plants. Here God-men come to usher in the new race. Earth is seventh heaven, each man an avatar. O time, driving dead engines of world war, inflaming volcanoes of endless hate, let man see with his solar gaze this world and find himself in others, others in him. Let rivers of love flow round and in the glow." Later, we have the position, again about the position of man. There is a passage, the evolutionary potential of man is described, apart from the unique position of the earth. A demigod animal came thinking man, he wallows in mud, yet heavenward soars in thought. He plays and ponders, laughs and weeps and dreams, satisfies his little longings like the beast. He pores upon life's book with student eyes, out of this tangle of intellect and sense, out of the narrow scope of finite thought. At last he wakes into spiritual mind. A high liberty begins and luminous room. He glimpses eternity, touches the infinite. He meets the gods in great and sudden hours. He feels the universe in his larger self. Thus man at once is animal and God, a disparate enigma of God's make, unable to free the Godhead's form within, a being less than himself, yet something more, the aspiring animal, the frustrate God. ತನ್ನೊಳಗೆ ತಾನು ಧೇನಿಸಿದಂತೆ ಇರಿದಾಯ್ತು ಮನುಕುಲದ ಮಹೋನ್ನತಿಯು. ವಿಕಸನದ ಜೀವನೋ ವಿಶ್ವದಲ್ಲಿ ಮತ್ತಾವ ಗಣಕ್ಕಿಲ್ಲ, ಕುಲಕ್ಕಿಲ್ಲ, ಅಂತರಿಕ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿರುವ ವಿದ್ಯಾಧರರಿಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಗಂಧರ್ವರಿಗೆ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಪ್ಸರ ಕುಲಕ್ಕೆ. ಸಂಗೀತದೊಂದು ಹೊಲನಲ್ಲೂ ಹರಿಸಬಹುದಿವರು, ಸೌಂದರ್ಯದೊಂದು ಧ್ವಜವನ್ನೆತ್ತಬಹುದವರು. ಹೂಹು ಸಂಗೀತ ನಿರ್ವಿಕಿಸನವರ ಚೆಲುವು, ಇಂದ್ರ ವರುಣರು ಬಾಳು ಸ್ಥಗಿತ. ವಿಕಸನವಿಲ್ಲ, ದೇವ ಜೀವನ ಯಥಾಸ್ಥಿತಿ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಗತಿಯಿಲ್ಲ. ನವಗ್ರಹಾಂಗಗಳು ವಿಶ್ವ ನವರಂಗ ಮಂಟಪದಿ, ತೂಗು ತಲೆವವು ನಿಯತಿ ಕೊರೆದಿರುವ ಪಥದಲ್ಲಿ. ಮಾನವನಂತೆ ಮಣ್ಣಿನಳು ಜನಿಸಿ ಮಣ್ಣಾಗುತ್ತ, ಮುಳು ಮುಳು ಅತ್ತು ಪಿಸಿ ಪಿಸಿ ನಕ್ಕು, ನರಳಾಡಿ ಹೊರಳಾಡಿ ಕುಣಿದು ಚಿಂತಿಸಿ ಧೇನಿಸಿ, ಭೋಗ ಯೋಗಗಳ ಸಾಧನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಭಾವ ಬುದ್ಧಿ ಕರ್ಮದ ಮಿಲನ ಸಾಧಿಸುತ್ತ ಬೆಳಗುತ್ತ, ಆತ್ಮ ಜ್ಞಾನೋದಯವು ಸಚ್ಚಿದಾನಂದದಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆರೆವ ಭಾಗ್ಯವ ಪಡೆವ ಆದಿತ್ಯರಿಗಿಲ್ಲ ಪೂರ್ಣತೆಯ ಸಿದ್ಧಿ. Both the epics express the view on the future of humanity. And both the epics have an optimistic view on the future of man and humanity. There is a reference to the emergence of the Superman in Savitri, and that is what I will come to now. The prophetic voice tells Savitri about the role which the Superman will play on earth. The Superman shall reign as king of life, make earth almost the mate and peer of heaven, and lead towards God and truth man's ignorance, and left towards Godhead is mortality, a power released from circumscribing bounds, its height pushed up beyond death's hungry reach. Life's top shall frame with immortal thoughts, light shall invade the darkness of its base. Then in the process of evolving time, all shall be drawn into a single plan. A divine harmony shall be earth's law. Beauty and joy remold her way to live. Even the body shall remember God. Nature shall draw back from mortality, and spirit's fire shall guide the earth's blind force. The supermind shall claim the world for light. Then shall the earth open to divinity, and common natures feel the wide uplift. Illumine common acts with spirit's ray, and meet the deity in common things. Nature shall live to manifest secret God. The spirit shall take up the human play. This earthly life become the life divine. I am coming to almost to the end of the talk now. I read the Kannada portion. ಮೊದಲಿದ್ದ ಮಾನವನು ಪವಿತ್ರ ದೇವಾಂಶ ಶಬ್ದ ಸ್ಪರ್ಶ ರೂಪ ರಸಗಂಧಗಳೆಂಬ ಇಂದ್ರಿಯ ಪಂಚಕದಿಂದ ಅನುಭವವೇ ವೇದ್ಯವಾಗಿತ್ತು. ದಿನ ದಿನ ಸೌಂದರ್ಯ ಶ್ರೀ ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯನಿಗೆ ಸೆರೆಗೆಯದು ನರಪ್ರಜ್ಞೆಯನ್ನು ರೂಪನಾಮಗಳಿಂದ ಓಡಿಸಿ ಮಾಯಾಮೃಗವ ಪ್ರಜ್ಞಾಹೀನ ನರನೆದುರು ದೈತ್ಯರು ಭ್ರಂಶಗೊಳಿಸಿದರು ನರನ ಪಾವಿತ್ರ್ಯವನ್ನು. ಕೊನಗೆಮ್ಮೆ ಮದವೆಳಿದು ಮನ ಹದಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದಾಗ ನಂಜಿಳಿದು ಅಮರ್ದುಣಿಸಿಗಾಗಿ ಜಿನುಗಿರೆ ಜೀವ ತೆರೆಯುತ್ತಂತಃಕರಣ ಮಗುವಿನಲು ಪ್ರಾರ್ಥಿಸಲು ಮಾರ್ಪಡುವವು ನರನ ವಿದ್ಯುತ್ ಕೋಶ ಜೀವಕಣ. ನಂದನದ ಸ್ಪಂದನಗಳಾವಿರ್ಭವಿಸುವಲ್ಲಿ ದೂರ ಮನಸ್ಪರ್ಶನವು ಅತೀಂದ್ರಿಯ ದೃಷ್ಟಿ ಅತೀಂದ್ರಿಯ ಶ್ರವಣ ಸ್ವಯಂ ವಿಕಸನಗೊಂಡು ಸೂಕ್ಷ್ಮ ಲೋಕಗಳ ಕ್ಷಿತಿಜವ ತೆರೆದು ತೋರುತ್ತ ನಿಬ್ಬಣವನ್ನೊಯ್ಯುವವು ಕಾರಣ ಪ್ರಪಂಚದೆಡೆ. ಮಾಯಾ ವಲಯಗಳ ತೊಳೆದು ಕುಂಚುಗೆಗಳ ತೆಗೆದೊಗೆದು ನಿರ್ನಾಮವಿರಲು ಮಾಲಿನ್ಯ ಕಾಷಾಯಗಳು. ಇಹ ನರನು ದೇವಾಂಶ ಸಮ್ಮವನು ದೇವಪ್ರಿಯ ದೇವದೀಪನು ದೇವಧಾಮ ದೇವಾನಂದ. Yes, then the last is about the future of humanity. There is another reference, and this is the last reference that I will be quoting. The last 3 lines of the epilogue of Savitri and the end of Bharat Sindhurashmi, they are compared. The last 3 lines of the epilogue of Savitri express the feelings of Savitri when she, along with Satyavad, came into a dimness of the sleeping earth. She brooded through her stillness on a thought, deep guarded by her mystic folds of light, and in her bosom nursed a greater dawn. Vishwamitra, Bharat Sindhurashmi, deals with the prayer that seers like Vishwamitra, who can guide mankind, may be born again and guide mankind so that mankind may open to the life divine. ಯುಗ ಯುಗಕ್ಕೆ ವಿಶ್ವಾಮಿತ್ರ ವೃದ್ಧಿಸಲಿ ಪೃಥ್ವಿ ಉದರದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಭ್ಯುದ ನಿಶ್ರಯಗಳಿಗೆ ಮಾಡಲಿದಾರಿ ಸಪ್ತ ರಶ್ಮಿ ದರ್ಶನದ ಭವ್ಯ ಭುವನದಲ್ಲಿ ಮರ್ತ್ಯ ಯಾತ್ರಿಗಳಿರಲಿ ದೇವ ಮಾನವರಾಗಿ ಮಾರ್ಪಡಲಿ ಮರ್ತ್ಯ ಸಮಾಜ ಆಗಿ ದಿವ್ಯ ಸಮಾಜ. So I don't want to deal and take more of your time, but the English rendering of this message is again as follows. May Vishwamitra be born again, masters of the world's well-being and masters of their own creative sculpture. Let them move to the vast mansion of 7 beams and streams. May mankind open to the life divine. Maybe cruel agony blocks on the path the subtle filaments of consciousness. Anchor may vanish in the doom-driven sea, and the anchorite left all anchorless, rudderless. Maybe millions are stranded on starless nights, and dire strife and suffering deaden the earth. Man will be victor, pilgrim of the stars, moving from heaven to hell, from hell to heaven, and the star vigilant eyes of seers protect him. Victory to man. Om, Om, Om. To conclude, I will say that Savitri is a reinterpretation of the traditional legends in a new light, as was the case in Urvasi, Love and Death. In Bharat Sindhurashmi, we see this impact in Bharat Sindhurashmi because the original legend has been modified by the author in Bharat Sindhurashmi, just as Savitri was also modified by Sri Aurobindo. In fact, the idea of adapting traditional legends and modifying them, he got it from Sri Aurobindo. There is the reinterpretation of the Vedas and Upanishads. And lastly, the spiritual journey of the 7 sages in Bharata Sindhurashmi, that shows the transcreation. The author has acknowledged the dialogue between Satyavrata and the 4-faced gods. I have already talked about it. I have brought out the similarities between the 2 epics, but nonetheless, there is a difference in the philosophic dialogues in the 2 epics, which mirror different aspects of man's ascent to Godhead. Vishwamitra and Savitri represent 2 significant milestones in the journey of the human to the divine. Vishwamitra achieves a significant milestone in the ascent of man to Godhead, as is accorded the status of the steersman in the cabin of the 7-star bluster. Savitri represents another milestone, the divinization of the human race, the descent of divinity into man. She is blessed by the universal mother who gives her consent to a return to earth along with Satyavama and act as an instrument to divinize the human race. She represents the next, the more advanced step in the spiritualization of humanity, as man's ascent to Godhead is complete only when the descent of divinity into man takes place. Her return to earth with Satyavan by itself will act as a catalyst in the spiritual progress of mankind. Vishwamitra refers to the birth of a new Gnostic race on earth, but Savitri quickens the birth of the new human race as she is the descent of divinity into man and will act as a catalyst even while living on the earth as she nurses a greater dawn in her bosom and transforms the human life into the life divine. The contrast between the 2 epics is due to the legend of Vishwamitra, to which the author had to necessarily conform due to thematic reasons. At the same time, the Aurobindonian in the author is not to get altogether asleep even here. The author brings out the element of descent into the epic through Vishwamitra himself, who speaks of millions of human beings scattering God's seeds on earth, even while he moves to the celestial world. He hints at the descent of divinity, even as he climbs to his throne in the celestial world. I have tried to share the results of my study with you. I am aware of my limitations. I am basically an administrator. Only after retirement I studied this. I must thank you for your patience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anilda. Thank you so much for that extraordinary exposition on Bharat Sindhurashmi, complementing it with Sri Aurobindo's magnum opus, Life Divine, the eternal epic Savitri. You touched upon secrets of Veda and then drew parallels to hymns of the mystic fire. And many other aspects of Sri Aurobindo's views, and then Sri Gokak's views, the author's views. Now I will keep the floor open for some kind of at least 10 minutes of interaction, so that if somebody wants any clarification or something like that, we can go ahead. The floor is open to participants. Participants, you have to unmute yourself. Okay. Participants, you will have to unmute yourself and ask the questions. Not necessarily only questions only. I mean, you can in fact give your views, make your observations, seek clarifications, any kind of interaction. RK sir, I think you have to start.
Then Kersoltri.
ಇಲ್ಲ ನೀವು ಮ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿರಿ. ನೀವು ಮಾತಾಡೋದು ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ.
ಹೌದಾ?
ಈಗ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
ನೋಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಹೌದೇನು?
ಈಗ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಲಿಕ್ಕತ್ತದ್ರಿ. ಏನಾರ ಕೇಳುದದ ರೀ ನಿಮ್ಗ ಅಥವಾ ಏನಾರ ಹೇಳುದದ?
ಮ್ಯೂಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಇದು. ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತದ?
ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತದ.
ಕೇಳ್ತಾದ?
ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾನೆ ಸರ್. ಇಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಮಾತಾಡೋದು ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ.
Shall I put this question to you, sir? Anil Gokak ji.
Please.
You talked about the re-emergence of Vishwamitra. Re-emergence of Vishwamitra. Exactly in what sense is the re-emergence of Vishwamitra? In terms of spiritual?
Yes. You see, what I meant was the various stages of evolution through which Vishwamitra passed. In the first phase, he was the Vishwaratha, the prince who realized after his encounter with Vasishtha that spiritual power was equally necessary for a ruler. He becomes a Vishwamitra, and he guides Sudasa. He puts his ideal into practice, enables Sudasa to win the battle with the help of his spiritual powers. So this was the phase of Vishwamitra. But re-emergence is in another sense. When he tried to help Trishanku and enable him to meet his wife bodily in heaven, he had to recreate the world. And then Bhogendra mocks him and he reacts angrily, and Brahma interferes. And Brahma says, this is not sufficient. You have to do your penance again. So it is the second stage of his penance And after that, he comes out and emerges as a Brahmarshi. That is what I meant as re-emergence.
He becomes a Brahmarshi.
It is because it's a kind of spiritual ascent. I would not use the word promotion, but spiritual, on the spiritual ladder,
Spiritual.
he moves upwards. Yes.
Right. Thank you.
But there are so many Brahmarshi, even Vashishta is also Brahmarshi. We are not even asking for the emergence of Vashishta. Why, especially, we are asking the emergence of Vishwamitra then? I am
Anil
audible,
sir,
sir?
ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತು? Did you hear the question? Bheed sir, can you repeat the question little loudly?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Brahmarshis are there, even Vashishta also there, Vishwamitra also there are all Brahmarshis. Then when we are particularly asking the emergence of Vishwamitra?
Anilda, I will repeat his question.
Arth ಆಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ.
Okay, I will repeat his question. What he is Dr. Bheed who is asking this question. ಅವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, there are so many Brahmarshis including Vashishta, but what is the importance and greatness that Vishwamitra's re-emergence
Of
is
this
called for?
Maharshi.
What is the greatness that?
Vishwamitra's re-emergence is being considered.
Yes. So, what is the...
ಅಲ್ಲಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮರ್ಷಿಗಳು ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, including Vashishta and others. But why Vishwamitra was given so much of importance? Am I right, Bheed or sir?
Yes, sir. Brahmarshi is there. There are Saptarishis are there. Why we are particularly asking Vishwamitra for the emergence? What is the special character in there? Yeah, in our asking for the emergence.
Well, I think the question is, why was Vishwamitra given so much of importance, even when other
Brahmarshis and Saptarshis are
Other
there?
Maharshis were there.
Okay, fine. You see, the epic deals with the period of Vedic Renaissance. That is, the period in which lot of turmoil took place, and the role played by Vishwamitra in it. This is a matter of judgment. The epic states at the beginning itself, Jamadagni, then there were other luminaries also who played an important role. But Vishwamitra, it appealed to him. In the beginning, the author who had read the account in the Mahabharata, but it was not Mahabharata or Ramayana, he was not very much impressed. It is the Rigvedic account of Vishwamitra which impressed the author, and that is how he took to Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra, there is another reason. Vishwamitra was already in his mental horizon because of another work they had written 10 years back, and that was Trishankuvena Pradnya Prabhata. In this book, it's a kind of mini epic, Vishwamitra had entered his mental horizon through the story of Trishanku. So, Vishwamitra was already there in the picture. This was further strengthened by his reading of Rigveda. Subsequently, then the connection between Vishwamitra and Dasharadnya battle. Dasharadnya battle has played a very important role in India's history. That is what my father felt, because it shows the defeat of the confederation of Aryan kings. The Dasu kings also had united because they said that we do not want the rule of somebody belonging to the mixed blood. It is either a pure Aryan or a pure Dasu, not a mixed blood, that is Sudasa. So all these handicaps, hurdles were overcome with the help of Vishwamitra, but for whom the Dasharatnya battle may not have been won by Sudasa. It is because of this, the synthesis between contemplation and action, historical importance, and the fact that Vishwamitra was already in his horizon through Trisham Govinda Prajna Prabhata, that I think Vishwamitra got prominence.
But it was Sudasa who fought against in the Dasharatnya. It was not the Vishwamitra. Sudasa who fought Dasharatnya war. There doesn't come any reference of Vishwamitra in Dasharatnya war. Am I not audible? I'm not audible.
Bidare, I think ನೀವು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಇನ್ನು ಮೈಕ್ ಹತ್ರ ತಗೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಕಾಣುತ್ತೆ.
ಇದು ನಾಯಕ್ ನೀವೇ ಕೇಳ್ರಿ ದಶಾಬ್ದಿ ಯಜ್ಞ ಒಳಗೆ ಭಾಗವಹಿಸ್ತಾವ ಸುದಾಸ ಬರ್ತಾವೆ ವಿಶ್ವಾಮಿತ್ರ ಅಲ್ರಿ ದಶಾಬ್ದಿ ಯಜ್ಞ ಒಳಗೆ of the 10 rajas who fought in the Ashad Yajna is Sudasa only.
ಅನಿಲ್ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತದ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಕ್ವಶನ್?
ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಅದೇನಂತ ಹೇಳಿಷ್ಟು
ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅವ್ರ ವಾಟ್ ಹಿ ಇಸ್ ಆಸ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಈಸ್ in the war it was actually Sudasa who fought and then not Vishwamitra anta. In the Dasu war it was Vishwamitra, I mean not Vishwamitra, it was Sudasu who fought the war anta.
Well, the anything else?
I mean that is the,
so whatever I learned, whatever I have read in the epic is like this. Vishwamitra does not fight the full battle. That is very correct, because he withdraws from the scene and becomes a Purohit and uses all his spiritual powers to assist Sudasa. But I think on one of the fronts, Vishwamitra took the whole responsibility. That is what my reading shows. If there is any difference on this, I can't say anything, because these are facts, that's all. This is what the Bharat Sindhurashmi and the notes given by the author say.
Beard sir, are you satisfied with the answer?
Yeah, I'm satisfied with the answer. Thank you.
He is basically putting forward actually not his views, his our V.K. Gokak's, the author's views essentially. And
he accepted that Sudasa fought and the Vishwamitra didn't fight, then it's all right. I'm to take it.
What he says is on one of the fronts Vishwamitra fought the war, and this is what he gathers from the text of Bharata Sindhurashmi. And
the only thing is that
let me clarify one point. Hello.
Tell me.
It is mainly the emphasis in the epic is on the spiritual power which he exercised to help Sudasa. He was no doubt given the responsibility of one front, but I don't think he played a very active role in the battle as such. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we agree with it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, if there are no more questions or observations, we will conclude the program with 1 minute silence. Thank you.
Thank you, right. Thank you, right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Right.
Thank you. It was a wonderful talk. I think he's gone. Okay. So, Larry, look forward for yours.
Yeah, this particular talk was very interesting.
Your talk is on the reverse day. Your talk is on the reverse number. I mean, today is 12th and yours is on 21st.
Yeah. Oh, yes, that is true. But there's a lot of parallelism. That is what I was struck with this talk. And frankly speaking, I like this talk very much. The way he interpreted and got the parallelism between these two, and especially the various roles that Ashtrapati played, and especially the dialogue that he had with Mother Earth and time. They were so striking with the similarities that we know about Sri Aurobindo's writing. It was wonderful, wonderful discussions we had today.
Yes, yes. So, thank you very much, one and all. We will see again tomorrow. I think we have another very interesting topic organized by Raichur Bhid sir. And following that, next will be on 21st, which is Mother's birthday, 1st of February. We have Lahariji speaking. Lahariji, what is the topic exactly? I think you have.
Topic on which I'm going to talk on is the Holocaust of the Supreme, the Sri Aurobindonian views and the scriptural views. In fact, I'll be talking on some of the Rigvedic suktas related to this aspect, and find the divergence, parallelism, and convergence.
Good. Good. I didn't tell the topic because I would have, I think, messed it up. It's such an important topic. So, okay, thank you very much, one and all. I think we have two chats. Meena Kumari saying thank you for the enlightening thought, and thank you for enlightening presentation. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you. We leave.